I froze with my hand on the door when I heard my name. Not whispered lovingly. Not spoken with excitement. Said like a strategy. "She's perfect," Sebastian said. Oliver laughed softly. "Perfect for them, you mean?" My wedding dress was hanging 10 steps away. Pearls. Ivory silk. A life I thought I was stepping into. I stayed still, breath locked in my chest, as the man I was about to marry confessed he was marrying me to survive his family's expectations. Not because he loved me. "He just needs a wife," Oliver added. "A solution," Sebastian replied. That word split something open inside me. Suddenly, every quiet night, every polite kiss, every emotional distance made sense. I wasn't his partner. I was his cover. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I rewrote something instead. And that's where my story truly began. Before I share this chapter of my life, if you've ever felt ignored, unheard, or underestimated, then this channel is for you. Subscribe to Jossy Revenge, where every story has a heartbeat. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. Used to believe love was loud, the kind that arrived unannounced, made a mess of your peace, and left your heart racing even when you were alone. Every man I'd ever loved before Sebastian fit that description. They were passionate, impulsive, intense. They loved hard and disappeared faster. Promises spoken in heat, forgotten in silence. So when Sebastian entered my life, he felt like a correction, like God finally saying, "You've learned enough. Here's something different." We met at a charity gala for emerging playwrights. I was there because one of my experimental stage productions had been shortlisted for funding. He was there because his name was on half the donor plaques in the building. I didn't know that at first. What I noticed was how calm he was in a room full of noise. Men in tailored suits, laughing too loudly. Women networking with smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Sebastian stood near the back, hands folded loosely in front of him, watching the stage like he actually cared about the words being spoken. That caught my attention. When I finished my pitch, my palms were damp with sweat. Public speaking never scared me, but asking for money always did. It felt like begging strangers to believe in something fragile. As I stepped down, someone handed me a glass of water. I looked up and saw him. "You spoke beautifully," he said. His voice was low even. No performative charm, no flirtation, just sincerity. "Thank you," I replied. "Most people just clap and forget." "I didn't forget," he said. "I wrote down 3 lines from your speech." That did something to me. We talked that night about art and silence and why some stories hurt to tell. He didn't interrupt. He didn't compete. He listened, like listening was an act of respect, not patience. I remember thinking, this is what safety feels like. He didn't ask for my number immediately. He asked if he could attend one of my rehearsals sometime. When he finally did ask for my number, it was 2 days later, in a text that read, "This is Sebastian. I hope this isn't intrusive. I'd like to know you better, but only if you'd like that too." I smiled at my phone like an idiot. Our relationship unfolded gently. No fireworks, no chaos, just consistency. He called when he said he would. He remembered small things, the way I took my tea, the fact that I hated surprises, the reason I preferred empty theaters to crowded cafes. He never raised his voice, never rushed me, never made me feel like I had to earn his affection. After years of emotional whiplash, it felt like stepping into still water. "What do you do when you're not saving the arts?" I asked him once. He smiled faintly. "I manage family assets. Old money. Old expectations." He said it like a joke, but there was something weighted beneath it. I learned about his family slowly. They were wealthy in a quiet, generational way, the kind of people whose names opened doors without them knocking. Traditional, conservative, image-conscious. I was nervous the first time I met them. I wore a navy blue dress, simple, elegant, not too artistic. Sebastian noticed. "You don't need armor," he told me gently as we walked into his parents' home. Just be you. And to my surprise, they welcomed me. His mother complimented my posture. His father asked thoughtful questions about my work. His sister hugged me tightly and whispered, "I like you already." That night, as we drove home, I felt something loosen in my chest. "They like me," I said. "They love you," Sebastian replied. "You fit." Fit. At the time, it sounded like belonging. Our life together was orderly. Sunday dinners, planned vacations, conversations that were kind but rarely deep. We didn't fight. We didn't argue. We didn't really collide. Sometimes, late at night, I would try to pull him closer, emotionally. "What are you afraid of?" I asked once, tracing circles on his arm. He hesitated. "Disappointing people." "Who?" "My family, everyone." "What about yourself?" He didn't answer that. I told myself not everyone was expressive. Not everyone bared their soul. Love didn't have to be dramatic to be real. Still, there were moments. Moments when he'd stiffen if I touched him unexpectedly. Moments when intimacy felt careful, almost rehearsed. Moments when his eyes went distant after family gatherings, like he'd just finished performing. "What would you do if you weren't doing this?" I asked him one evening, after a fundraiser. "Doing what?" "Living this life." He smiled politely. "This is my life." I accepted that answer because I wanted to. The proposal came 6 months later. Too public for my taste. Too planned. Too perfect. We were at a museum, opening his idea. Surrounded by donors, artists, patrons. A string quartet played softly in the background. He took the microphone, thanked everyone, then turned to me. "Naomi," he said, voice steady, "you have brought balance, grace, and clarity into my life. Will you marry me?" Applause erupted before I could even think. I said yes because it felt expected, because I loved him, because everyone was watching and smiling and believing in us. Later that night, alone, I asked him quietly, "Why there?" He looked surprised. "I thought you'd like being celebrated." "I like being known," I replied. He kissed my forehead. "You are." I wanted to believe that. Wedding planning moved fast. His mother handled most of it, tasteful, elegant, traditional. I was consulted, not involved. My opinions were received kindly, then adjusted. "It's just how things are done," Sebastian would say. I told myself compromise was part of marriage. But sometimes, when I looked at the guest list filled with people I barely knew, I felt like I was stepping into a role written by someone else. One night, while finalizing vows, I asked him, "What do you think marriage is for?" He thought for a moment. "Stability, legacy, partnership, and love?" He smiled softly. "Of course." The answer felt added on. I ignored the quiet unease because everything looked right, because everyone said I was lucky, because my life, from the outside, finally made sense. I didn't realize yet that I wasn't being chosen. I was being used to complete a picture. The night before the rehearsal dinner, the house felt unfamiliar. Not hostile, just hollow. Sebastian's parents' estate had always been immaculate, quiet hallways, polished floors, rooms that smelled faintly of old books and expensive candles. But that evening, every step I took echoed too loudly, like the walls themselves were listening. I had been looking for Sebastian. We were staying in separate wings of the house tradition, his mother insisted. I wanted to ask him something small, something silly, really. Whether he remembered the first line I'd ever written that made him cry. I needed reassurance I couldn't explain. As I turned the corner near the study, I heard voices. Sebastian's voice. And another Oliver's. His longtime friend. The one who'd been at his side since university. The one who always looked at Sebastian like they shared a private language. I slowed without meaning to. "I can't keep pretending forever," Sebastian said. I stopped walking. Oliver sighed. "You don't have to pretend. You just have to get through this." "This?" Sebastian echoed. "This is my life." "It's an arrangement," Oliver replied gently. And a smart one. Your parents get their heirs stability. The board stays comfortable. The donors stay loyal. And Naomi? Sebastian asked. My name landed between them like something fragile. There was a pause. Too long. She's perfect, Sebastian said finally. Kind. Talented. She fits the image. Image. Oliver chuckled quietly. She really does. Everyone loves her. I know, Sebastian replied. That's why this works. I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself. So you're really going through with it? Oliver asked. I don't have a choice, Sebastian said. If I don't marry her, they'll start asking questions. Questions I can't afford to answer. And after the wedding? Silence again. I'll do what I've always done, Sebastian said softly. Keep things separate. Separate. Oliver lowered his voice. You don't think she suspects anything? No, Sebastian said quickly. She trusts me. That was when something inside me went completely still. She doesn't need to know everything, Sebastian continued. Some truths are better left untouched. I stepped back before they could hear my breathing. I don't remember how I got to my room. I don't remember closing the door. I just remember sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at my hands like they belonged to someone else. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't crying. I felt rearranged. Everything I thought I knew began replaying itself in a different light. The distance, the careful intimacy, the way love felt implied but never spoken too loudly. I wasn't his partner. I was his shield. I lay back and stared at the ceiling, counting my breaths. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. I told myself I'd misunderstood. People speak carelessly with friends. Context matters. But deep down, I knew. You always know. Have you ever had a moment where the truth doesn't crash into you, it simply steps forward and waits? Calm. Unapologetic. Certain. That was how it felt. The next morning, I woke early and took a walk around the gardens. Dew clung to the roses. Birds moved freely, unaware of the performance humans perfected so well. I replayed our entire relationship like a script. Our first meeting, his gentleness, his restraint. I had mistaken restraint for respect. I remembered the nights when he'd pull away just slightly, like closeness was something to be rationed. The way he never spoke about desire, only compatibility. The way love felt or managed. I had told myself it was maturity. Now I saw it for what it was. Control. Not malicious. Not cruel. Just profoundly dishonest. At breakfast, Sebastian greeted me with a soft smile. He kissed my cheek, careful as always. Did you sleep well? He asked. Yes, I lied. He sat beside me, discussing schedules and seating charts like nothing had happened, like my heart hadn't been quietly evacuated overnight. I watched him closely. He looked exactly the same, and that hurt more than anything. Later that day, I tried to confront him. Not directly. Not yet. I asked, "Do you feel like you're living the life you want?" He looked up from his phone. "Why do you ask?" "Just wondering," I said. "You always talk about responsibility. Never about desire." He smiled politely. "Desire complicates things." "Does it?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "And complications have consequences." There it was. I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded. The rehearsal dinner was that evening. Candles, toasts, laughter. Stories about Sebastian as a child obedient, accomplished, careful. The word careful came up more than once. I watched his parents beam with pride. I watched the guests admire us like a finished portrait. I felt like I was watching someone else's engagement. Oliver caught my eye from across the table. For just a moment, something flickered across his face. Guilt. He looked away quickly. That night, alone again, I opened my laptop and stared at the vows I'd written weeks earlier. They were beautiful. Too beautiful. They spoke of forever, and partnership and truth. They spoke of love like a mutual unveiling. I laughed quietly to myself. Who was I kidding? I closed the document. Then I opened a new one. I didn't know yet what I would say. I only knew what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't expose him. I wouldn't humiliate him. I wouldn't become the villain in his family's story. I also wouldn't marry a lie. Have you ever realized you were standing at a crossroads you didn't choose but still had to decide? That was me. The next day, I asked his sister to walk with me. She linked her arm through mine, smiling. "You look pale. Nervous?" "Something like that," I said. "You know," she continued, "you're good for him. You calm him. He needs that." "Needs?" I smiled sadly. "Does he need me, or the idea of me?" She frowned. "What do you mean?" "Nothing," I said. "Just pre-wedding thoughts." But the question lingered between us. That afternoon, Sebastian came to my room. "I feel like you've been distant," he said gently. Did I do something? I studied his face, the practiced concern, the careful eyes. "Do you love me?" I asked. He paused. "Yes," he said, "in my way." That answer told me everything. I reached for his hand and held it briefly. "I need some air." He nodded. "Take all the time you need." Always so accommodating. Always so empty. That night, I finished rewriting my vows. Not angry, not bitter, just honest. I didn't know how the next day would unfold. I didn't know how people would react. But for the first time since I'd overheard that conversation, my chest felt light. I wasn't being reckless. I was being real. And once you choose truth, there's no going back. The morning of the wedding arrived quietly. No thunder. No signs. Just sunlight slipping through sheer curtains like it had every right to be there. I sat alone in the bridal suite, already dressed. The gown fit perfectly tailored to my body, my height, my posture. Months of planning had gone into making sure I looked exactly how a bride should look. Calm, radiant, certain. My reflection stared back at me, composed and unfamiliar. People moved in and out of the room around me. Makeup artists, stylists. His mother, checking details. Her voice floated above me like background music. Everything is on schedule. The guests are seated. "You look stunning, Naomi." I thanked them politely. Inside, I felt steady. Not numb steady, like the moment before a curtain rises, when the audience holds its breath and the stage is finally yours. Have you ever noticed how clarity doesn't scream? It whispers, but once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Sebastian didn't come to see me. Tradition again, or maybe caution. I wondered if he sensed something was different, or if he trusted, as he always had, that I would play my part. When it was time to walk down the aisle, his sister squeezed my hands. "You're doing great," she whispered. I smiled. "I know." The music began. As I walked forward, I saw faces filled with expectation, pride, approval. This was a wedding they understood elegant, respectable, seamless. Sebastian stood at the altar, perfectly composed. Dark suit, calm eyes, a man stepping into exactly the life designed for him. When he saw me, his expression softened, not with passion, with relief. And in that moment, I felt something unexpected. Compassion, because I finally understood him. We stood facing each other as the officiant spoke about love and commitment and sacred bonds. The words floated past me, familiar and hollow. Then it was time for the vows. Sebastian went first. His were eloquent, polished, safe. He spoke of partnership, of gratitude, of stability. He thanked me for being grounding, for being understanding, for making life easier. People nodded, smiled. Some dabbed their eyes. When he finished, he looked at me with quiet confidence. It was my turn. I took a breath. And then I spoke. "I was taught that love is about truth." I began, my voice steady, clear. Not the truth we present to the world, but the truth we can live with when no one is watching. The room stilled. I believed that choosing someone meant choosing to be seen, fully, imperfectly, honestly. Sebastian's brow furrowed slightly. I also learned that sometimes we mistake safety for love. We accept being needed instead of being cherished. A murmur rippled through the guests. I continued. I am not angry. I am not here to expose or accuse. I am here because I respect myself enough to stop pretending. Sebastian's breath caught. I refuse to be a solution to someone else's fear. I refuse to be a shield against questions they are afraid to answer. Silence. I turned my gaze directly to him. You don't need a wife, I said softly. You need a life you don't have to hide from. A collective gasp filled the room. I reached up and gently removed the ring from my finger, placing it in his palm. I hope one day you choose yourself. Truly. Then I turned around. I walked back down the aisle alone. No one stopped me. No one spoke. The doors closed behind me with a sound that felt like freedom. Outside, the air was warm, real. I breathed deeply for the first time in months. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I walked. In the days that followed, the world tried to define what I'd done. Brave, cruel, unnecessary, iconic. I let them talk. Sebastian didn't contact me at first. When he finally did, his message was simple. I'm sorry. I replied just as simply. I know. I moved back into my apartment, the one filled with unfinished scripts and mismatched furniture and truth. I returned to rehearsals, to long nights, to stories that hurt before they healed. I wrote a new play. It wasn't about betrayal. It was about courage. Opening night, I stood backstage and listened as the audience went quiet, that familiar hush before something real begins. I smiled, because this time I wasn't playing a role. I was living my own story. Moral of the story: walking away didn't mean I lost love. It meant I found honesty. I learned that being chosen isn't enough. You must be chosen truthfully. Love that asks you to disappear is not love. And courage isn't loud. Sometimes it's a calm voice that says, "This isn't for me anymore." If my story touched you, hit that subscribe button for more emotional tales from Jossy Revenge. And even if it didn't, come on, subscribe anyway. I'll win you over next time. Drop a comment, like the video, and let's keep the stories alive. Thanks for watching.